up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith, and welcome to The Nerdy Narrative. On this channel, I like to talk to you about all sorts of bookish-related things that I'm currently reading, whether it be science fiction, fantasy, horror, manga, comics, nonfiction, poetry, short stories, literary fiction, classics, you name it, I'll read it. On today's episode of Fun, I am going to do my weekly check-in where I just kind of do a brief wrap-up of everything that I have read, what I'm currently still reading, and what I plan to read next. Before we get into all that, I do want to remind you guys that this Sunday on my channel, May the 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern, there will be a live show for this wonderful piece of fiction, which is written by a team of authors that go by the name M.A. Carrick. This book was so much fun, and a ton of my friends that I read it with are going to be guests on the show with me. So if you're thinking about reading this book, definitely come by and say hello. We will start off with some non-spoiler thoughts and opinions, and then we will, of course, delve into those spoiler talks. We'll give you fair warning, but if you've been wondering if this might be one you're interested in, tune in this Sunday and hear what we all think about it. You might not recognize this though. Next up, I need to show you this piece of book mail that I got. I was so thrilled when it came in. It was a complete surprise. In fact, Chris accidentally opened it thinking it was something that was his. He opens it up, he goes, "Wait a minute, this is a book. This isn't mine." And I was like, "Book? Did you say book?" It was none other than The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, which is one of the standalones from the First Law trilogy world. And it was sent to me by my very good friend, the cat lady book nook Penny. Penny and I had our own little buddy read going of the First Law trilogy as I did the read along with Steve Talks About Books and Stuff and Yolene Reads. And we loved this world so much. We had so much fun with the trilogy, and she knew how much I just loved Joe Abercrombie and just wanted to read everything. So she sent this to me, and so I went ahead and picked up the other two. Those are on the way. I immediately texted her and I was like, "So, when are we going to get into this one together?" Our current plan is to read Best Served Cold, followed by The Heroes next month. I cannot wait. I literally cannot wait. Alright, let's get into what all I completed last week. Just like I predicted would happen when I finished filming last week's weekly wrap-up, I binged out the rest of the Atlantis Jean by A.G. Riddle. This guy can write. This trilogy was actually self-published, and it has sold millions of copies, and I do believe he is now with a publisher. I'm gonna read all of his stuff too. I mean, guys, I am just loving what BookTube is doing for me. It is expanding my world. I used to read just kind of from a small pool of fantasy and science fiction authors, and man, have you guys introduced me to some amazing authors and the worlds that they're creating. This book was so fast-paced. My head was just spinning. This is one I buddy read with Michael Nip, and we were just lighting each other up with our thoughts and opinions about this book when we could actually break ourselves away from it to chat, because this book never let up. It started on page 1 and it just never let up. Absolutely loved it. Once I finished the Atlantis Jean, I focused hot and heavy on Last Argument of Kings, which is book 3 in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Man, this book was so good. It took the character building from the first book and combined it with the plot and the world building from the second book, and it just really harmonized those two things together in a just wonderful conclusion to the series. Absolutely adored it. I did a lot of laughing in this one again. Joe was up to some of his antics that he first introduced us to in The Blade itself. I couldn't have been more happier with this ending. Now, was it a traditional ending that I liked? No, I usually liked all of my plot lines with a nice little bow on them, and I didn't get that. There was some closure, but not all. There was a lot left to my imagination, but I had enough information provided to me by the author that I'm actually having fun thinking of all of the ways that those open endings could have continued in this world. And I'm hoping that some of these standalones are going to answer some of those questions, or at least tell me if I was right or not. But guys, really love The First Law. It is high on my list of rereads. I know I just finished it, but I already want to reread it. I know I probably missed a lot of things that I want to go back and see from the beginning again. And then my most recent finish, I finished it last night, The Wastelands by Stephen King. Wow, this book was such a surprise. I'm just floored by what Stephen King is doing with the Dark Tower series. How is it that more fantasy nerds haven't read this series? How have I never read this series? Until I made a bunch of friends on BookTube, nobody ever mentioned this series to me. I didn't even know it was a fantasy series. I did like the movie. I knew it was based on books, but I never picked up the books. I really wish I would have, because that movie is trash. Such trash. It is an absolute travesty in regards to the Dark Tower. Wow, I just really love this book. I did pair it with the audiobook, which has one of my favorite new narrators that I've discovered, which is Frank Muller. Oh guys, he is so good. I will listen to anything he narrates. I did make some channels for this series on my Discord for anyone who wanted to buddy read it with me, and the cat lady Book Nook Penny is reading this series with me as well, and she told me, she's like, Leslie, you need to check out the audiobook. The guy does the voices so well. I mean, the first word that came out of his mouth, I instantly recognized it was Frank, and I was in love. I listened to the last 5 hours of it yesterday, and it was so intense. Such a phenomenal book. And again, it was so unlike its two predecessors in this series. I just don't know what to expect from Stephen King when it comes to the Dark Tower. They're all so different. They're so good. It's just flooring me how he keeps changing the tone and the pacing, and it just works. And the like the way this one began, I was going, what in the absolute Sam Hill is going on? Where could this possibly go from here? And oh my gosh. But I do see why Una from the Codex Cantina said, save this one as your last read for April so you can go right into Wizard and Glass for your May read. And once I finished it, I found that he definitely had steered me true. Okay gang, that takes care of everything that I completed. Let's talk about the books I'm still currently working on. And I completely forgot to mention last week in my update about Winds of Strife by U.G. Gutman. I just forget about this little Kindle when it comes to filming. I walk around the house to my various reading spots picking up the books. And I just forget about my little Kindle sitting by my bedside table, because I always save my Kindle read for the last 30 minutes to an hour before I go to sleep. And I just, for some reason, I don't see a book, so I keep going. But yes, I do have various places that I read at different times of the day, and so my books are in those locations depending on what I'm reading. Yeah, whatever. But let's talk about Winds of Strife. I'm currently 26% of the way in. Things are really starting to shape up. I'm definitely going to be trying to spend some more time in this one in the next few days and get it finished. All the characters I feel have been introduced at this point, and now we're getting into the developing stage. We've spent a lot of time with the magic system, and I do wish I had the physical copy of the book. Each chapter, at the beginning of each chapter, there's a chart that tells you about the different emotions and the magic that is tied with that emotion and how it's manipulated or used. So I really wish I had the physical copy to flip back and forth between those. It's just not something easy to do on your Kindle. But we've just started getting into the character development. You guys know I love me some good character development, so I'm really excited to see what the author is going to do with these characters. I feel the magic system has been explained really well, especially with it being one I've never read about before. I do feel the author described it very well. I feel like I understand how it works and operates. So now I'm ready to get into some characters. I've really been focused on the Wastelands the last few days because it was supposed to be finished in April and I waited too late and carried it over into May. So that meant I was behind on my May reads. But I needed a bit of a break. I needed to break it up with something. So I decided to start Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. And this is a read-along that's hosted by Kellyhookedonbooks, and the discussion is on Brad Proctor's Discord. I'm going to have Brad linked in the description below. But if this is a book you've already read and you're interested in hearing the thoughts and opinions of the group, I will have Kelly's channel linked below so you can hit up that live stream at the end of the month. But this book, I've only read the prologue and chapter 1, and Tiffany McDaniel can write her tail off. Her imagery, oh wow. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I think this is going to be a very, very tragic story. I'm just basing that off of what I read in the prologue in chapter 1. So I might be a little bit early in my prediction, but that's just what my gut is telling me. I just think it's going to be a very tragic and emotional story, but I think it's going to be one that I won't be able to stop reading because of how beautifully it's written. So that's just initial thoughts on the very little I've read so far. By the time I get back to you next week, I should definitely have my teeth in good on it so I can give you a little bit more of an idea of what it's about. And I'm still working on the Jeff Johns arc of the Green Lantern. I am well over halfway through. This is a really fun comic series to read. I like how the smaller arcs are by different artists and colorists. So I'm getting exposed to a lot of different styles of how they're drawn. So that's been fun. Some I like, some I don't like. Some I like some ways that they do things and not others. So that's been really kind of fun to just see those different styles all together in one bind up. But I'm really liking the story. I don't particularly like Hal Jordan that much. I really like Guy Gardner. I love his snark and just smart mouth. He just really appeals to me. He's just a little bit of a rebel and I love him. So I don't get to see him as much as I wish that I could. Maybe in the upcoming issues he's going to play a role and I'll get to see him here and there. But the story is really good. I am definitely enjoying it. It was a great series to pick up. So hopefully by the end of May, I will be done with this omnibus and I will be hitting up the second one in June. All right, so that takes care of everything that I'm still reading. Let's talk about what I'm going to stick my nose into next. Well, I will be definitely starting Wizard and Glass this afternoon. I have to know what happens next. That was one heck of a cliffhanger Stephen King left us on in the Wastelands. I feel sorry for you folks that read that series as it was being published. Having to wait on Wizard and Glass would have been excruciating. But I'm really, really excited to get into this one. I've heard that I'm going to get a lot of good backstory in it. I've also heard that it's a love story. So I'm really curious how that's going to play out. I'm also very excited to see what the tone and pacing and what craziness Stephen King is going to come up with in Wizard and Glass. I fully expect him to do what he's done with the past 3. The path to the Dark Tower is such a mystery in more ways than one. The curveballs that King just keeps throwing at me, I love them. I can't fathom how someone's brain can function to craft these stories with these twists and these turns and just, I mean, it's just amazing what this man does. I am super thankful that he is able to, because this is an amazing series. So this is the first one that I'm going to be picking up today. And then another one that I'm planning to start spending some time in starting today is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. This is my nonfiction read for the month of May. I've heard so many good things from you guys about this one. I'm really excited to get into it myself It's such a beautiful copy. It's got pictures and all kinds of little added things in it that I'm looking forward to exploring. So I'll be checking in with you guys about my thoughts on this one. It's so little, I probably will have it finished by the time I talk to you next week. I will probably wait until I finish one of these reads that I've already got going, or one of the two that I'm about to start today, before I get into this one. But the next one I plan on sinking my teeth into is going to be Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm so excited to see what the author does in this one. He has shocked me in the other 3 books of his that I've read so far. I fully intend for him to do something just as amazing. And this one is a very highly anticipated read for me. I love Stephen Graham Jones. And this one is actually part of a little unofficial read along that Evie from She Was Only Evie and I are doing over the next several months. We're going to be reading a ton of Stephen Graham Jones and Zora Neale Hurston. So I do have a channel set up on my Discord for Mongrels, along with the other novels we're going to be reading throughout the next year. So the link will be in the description box down below. If you want to read Mongrels with us, even if you can't start it this week like I am, just whenever you can this month or next, you can pop on into that channel. I would love to have somebody to talk about these books with, because Stephen Graham Jones, once you start reading his work, you're going to want to talk to people about it. And that will take care of everything that I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to get into next. What are you guys reading out there? Have you read any of these books I mentioned today, or are you currently reading any of these books? Or if you're reading something completely different that is just knocking your socks off, definitely hit me up in the comments down below. Tell me what it is. I want to hear about it. You know, I'm always adding to my TBR. That will do it for this one today, guys. I hope you all have had a wonderful start to your day. I hope the rest of your day goes amazing, as well as a fantastic weekend. Y'all take care, and I'll see you soon.